please ask the people that's under Athena to put off the camera there, please? Can you hear me? Okay. But anyway, we'll start. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining. This actually is a very important day. It comes hot on the heels of International Women's Day. And at RMI, we embrace the concept of equity, diversity, and inclusivity. So my name is Feroz Outen. I'm the Vice President of the RMI, and I also chair the Transformation Committee. And this webinar and this initiative of Women Driving Change is part of the transformation initiative of the RMI. So just before I introduce Linda, who you're really going to enjoy, I just want to say a few things about today. The session is being recorded, so I know that there are some of you that will be able to look at it later. The RMI does have its own YouTube channel, and so you are welcome to have a look at this and other recordings that we've had. And to join the Women's Network, you need to go onto the RMI's transformation page. You can just Google transformation and RMI, and there's an About Us icon. And if you go on there, you'll see Join the Women Driving Change Network. And we also want this to be an engaging session. So I'm going to ask you to put any questions that you have for Linda in the chat box. Because we'd like that engagement. And also afterwards, there's going to be a very special announcement about the reward for the people that engage with us. But on to the session today. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Linda. She's the CEO of La Rosse Consulting. She's Linda Rossouw. Some of you, or many of you, might have read her articles in the Automobile. One of her achievements is that article every month is the most read article in the magazine, and it's not only about finance, even though that is a strength in her skill set. It also talks about a whole lot of other things. I think the latest one was on leadership versus management. So I think that's wonderful. Linda Rossouw has a diverse skill set. Even though at the base and foundation of it is finance, her whole skill set is geared to enable business growth, which is especially why it's so good to talk to you. She's a mom and she's a grandma. I heard yesterday she's surrounded by males because she has 4 sons and 3 grandsons. So that's quite a feat. I think her most recent achievement is that she was firstly a nominee, but now once she's gone through the interview, she's a finalist in the current cohort of Women of Stature Awards, which is quite a prestigious award. So Linda, congratulations on that. It's wonderful that you reached that level. So perhaps I'm just going to kick off and say no more, but I'm going to ask you if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and just give us a brief overview of your career so far.
Thank you very much, Feroz, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. And it warms my heart to learn and to know that the articles are enjoyed so much by the members and the readers. And I want to share something before I actually kick off around that and how it actually started. So Jan Schoeman and I are actually in the same business group. And the director support platform. And we have been in that group for many, many years. And in October 2022, when I said, or I think it was probably August, and I said, I'm going to do my own thing. And Jan came and he says, Linda, why don't you write us finance articles for Automobile? And I was like so taken aback. And I said, but I don't know anything about writing finance articles. And he said, just give it a go. And I gave it a go, and you know what? It was such a revolution that I actually really love and enjoying writing these articles. It like just flows. So thank you very much for that. Um, yeah, let me think. So my career went the finance way. Obviously, I think we all start there. Right from articles, formal financial articles, to being an accountant, a financial manager, a financial director, the CEO of a company, and then the CEO of a company or the managing director, right through to October 2022 when I became an entrepreneur and founded my own outsourced CFO company. Now, throughout my career, I was always studying. I'm the forever learner. I'm always studying or learning something. And yeah, in when was it? 2022, actually, January 2022, I thought I wanted to develop myself, and I actually enrolled for a coaching course with Dreamery Leach Coaching, which is an American-based platform. And for 15 months, I actually, for blocks of 10 weeks, studied how to become a coach. And yes, I'm now a qualified professional coach. So, and that's why, the outsourced CFO and the business coaching combined really gives a wonderful platform of giving holistic view and support for businesses that I deal with and encounter with every day. I'll share a story. So when I was 40, I was started with my MBA, all geared up, starting this MBA. And 6 months into this, I became violently ill. I'm like so ill. I don't know what's going on. Any case, went off to the doctor, did a few tests, and so here comes the nurse back with this little thing. And I said, yeah. And she says, ma'am, I just want to inform you, you are very much pregnant. Now, I mean, there is nothing that has prepared me for that. This is 19 years after the last one. So I can tell you, I have my sons, they range from the age of 35 to 17. So I have, like we say in Afrikaans, a real lot lamb at home who's in grade 11. But of course, all the boys are the joys of our lives, but this one specifically really keeps us on our toes. And I think something that I want to highlight as well for my career is I did two 10-year stints at two different companies. The one was at Shoprite Checkers head office in Cape Town, where I followed, the accountant and doing this, that, and the other. And by the time I left at the end of that 10-year stint, I was responsible for 400 stores, P&Ls, making sure that they balance not every month, but every week. And we were driving that by exception reports. And so big data is my thing. It's one of the specialities that I really like. My next 10-year stint was at a company called Element 6, which was part of, or is still part of the Beers and Anglo Group. Now they have two parts to that company. The one does industrial diamonds and the other part does tungsten carbide and doing specifically products for the mining industry. And when I started with that company, I obviously walked in as the FM and the company secretary. And a few years in, they asked, there's a position for the GM. And I've just finished my MBA. Put up my hand and said, okay, I will do this. And then like a year later, the shareholders, German shareholders came to me and said, Linda, we're going to want to offer you a seat on the board as MD. But we want to know, are you going to be MD and sales or MD and finance? And I just realized that the right answer had to be MD and sales. So what did I do? I took myself off to GIPS to go and do a general management program where, you go from specialist to general management, learn all the sales lingo. But I also joined Debbie Ebelstein. At that stage, she was running We Lead women programs. And in that whole, training, I actually finally found my voice. because often when you're in finance, you are a little bit more reserved, you're a little bit more silent. And that had made, you know, a big, big change in my whole career and my whole life to actually to be able to stand up and talk. And yeah, when I became the MD, I was the first woman within the Element 6 group to actually become an MD of running a factory, which was obviously a huge achievement. And I worked many, many hours during those years, but it has been so rewarding. And, it was fantastic to be part of the development, not only for myself, but of the whole company in its whole. So I have very fond memories of working there the 10 years. And then after that, eventually in 2022, I decided now is the time to give back, start my own thing, because I also came to realize that if I don't do this now or then at that stage, I'm never going to do it, and I will always wonder. But here I am today.
So it looks like you've been continuously learning, and that there's no age barrier to knowing more and learning more. I'm just asking you, how do you think the role of women in finance has changed over the years?
Well, the role of women in finance has, undergone significant transformation over the last 30 years, marked by gradual but steady shift towards inclusion, higher positions of leadership, and breaking through those traditional gender barriers that once dominated the industry. If we think about 50 years ago, and it's maybe a tad more than 50 years ago, but be it as it may, um, women were significantly underrepresented in finance, particularly in high level positions. And over the years, there has been a concerted effort to increase the representation of women in finance at all levels. And I want to share again a little story with you. So, when I started my articles in my second year, I joined Brink Roos and Toy. And when I walked in that day, there were 80 clerks, of which I was the only girl at that stage or woman. But all the other ladies were the typists, because those years, you still type the AFSs. And only later in the year that another lady joined us. And then the next year, another lady. But I mean, if we think today, women, that is going and participating in uh, formal articles, I mean, there's a big shift. And I think now women actually, I mean, I went to look at the stats yesterday. There's, women actually outweigh the men to become CA. So significant, significant changes.
Mm. Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. And the accountant used to always be a male, traditionally.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And if you think about it, again, those stereotypes have been challenged and increasingly being dismantled, allowing women to actually pursue and excel in financial careers without being hindered by gender bias. Of course, there's still a lot of those around. Um, but I do believe, as I go around and as I speak with customers and as I speak with other women, because I have a great, great sense of empowering women, of course, also men. But I mean, women has a soft spot in my heart for development in empowering. And you still find it. I mean, but it's a lot less than, when I was like a 18-year-old or a 25-year-old.
Mm. Yeah. So obviously you also give advice to businesses and you probably help them turn themselves around and help them plan for growth and so on. What do you think are the key challenges for businesses today, especially those in the early stages of their existence?
So the key challenges is for business is definitely, and if we think about startup, is the access to funding. Because often, so you've been maybe in corporate or you have this wonderful idea and you think, okay, you know what? I'm going to go out and start my business. And fantastic. I mean, our country needs more and more entrepreneurs, but often they lack the funding. And yes, there is a lot being done to actually go about and fund, startup organizations. Or maybe you've been now, a year or two, and now you need funding because you need to expand and you need to grow. And the thing is now, how do you actually get access to that funding? And what you would need to do, in my opinion, what I've seen is that you need to really go and talk to people. And it's not always the traditional banks. Sometimes you just need to reach out to your network and say, you know what? I've been around for so long. I need funding. Would you be interested? And you would be amazed about how willing, a lot of businesses are, and especially business owners, and especially if they've been successful for a number of years, to actually assist you in helping your business taking forward.
Mm. So it's quite interesting. In the Western Cape, recently we had a young lady called Candace, and she came to talk to actually the Vehicle Testing Station Association, and next week she's talking to the Western Cape region, and she's talking about access to finance, and not only opening doors for financial institutions, but helping, saying that some of us are not prepared, in that our finances are not in a state to be able to
Mm.
present it properly. And do you think that's a challenge for many small businesses?
Most definitely, Feroz. I have seen that many, many times. So, you walk in, even a more established business, the one thing that businesses often lack is proper systems because they think systems and admin are boring. And yet, you know, one of, I think the lady is actually here in our audience, but in another group this morning, she actually said, in her research, she has found that one of the 10 stress points of businesses is admin. And so when you start a business, even if it's a small business and you're a solo entrepreneur, you should really make sure that you actually document your process. What is your sales playbook? How do you actually, make use of an accounting system? And make sure that you have a file where everything is nicely put together. Have your goals, have your strategy, have it recorded, have it documented, because when you need to go to a bank, they're going to look at those things and they want to see, who are the people supporting you? What finances do you have? Have you borrowed money before? What is your debt ratio? Have you been self-funded? Where have things maybe gone wrong? Why do you need the extra money? And can you afford to actually borrow money? Um, and that is why then your financial records would be of the utmost importance, because they want to look at what is that results looking like. So because that is your like North Star, no? That is your little guideline to show, oh, but this is what I've done. And without those documents, you're not going to get very far, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's true. I think there are instances maybe in the old days where people had faith, you know, um, and faith is that belief without evidence. They look at your balance sheet and they don't see the spirit of the business and so on. So that's quite important. But maybe it leads on to another question. There are often financial metrics that us as businesses overlook, but which are the ones that you believe should be monitored quite closely?
It would be those ones that we don't really think about. So obviously we would know sales, net profit, our balance sheet, our inventory, things like that. But the ones that we should really look at, and especially if you have a range of clients, okay, it's your customer lifetime value. because that represents the total revenue a business can reasonably expect from a single customer account throughout the business relationship. So if you think, you know, in your basket of customers, you are supplying them a basket of goods or a basket of services. But if you don't go and actually be in contact with your customer, know your customer's needs, have that conversation with your customer. What is that customer's goal? Where is he planning to go? How will you ever be able to upsell and tell him, oh, but you know what? I can also do this, or I can also assist you with that. Because when you go in and you like give this whole, oh, I can do the whole, earth, they're going to think, this is a jack of all trades and a master of none. So you really need to work very, very closely with your customer. And as you go along and they deliver the service, and of course, deliver excellent service, they will then come to you and say, okay, no, but I'm also trying to do this, or I want to do this. And often we forget, that it's a lot easier to upscale a customer and retain a customer than actually acquiring a new customer. So for me, that is a very, and of course, there's a matrix you can physically go and measure that. Um, the same with customer acquisition costs. It costs to actually get a customer. It's your time. You need to go and speak to the customer. You might have to travel to the customer. You're having a few conversations. You drive up and down, and you're not really making that impact. And sometimes, it is just the role of the matrix within the customer, or is this hindering and that hindering, but what is that cost of actually bringing this customer on board? And sometimes it's easy. I mean, sometimes you just have a conversation, and there you know draw up the service level agreement, and there you go. But it's not always that easy, and that's sort of like a hidden cost. And if you know what it costs to actually bring a customer on board, you can really go and think, okay, what does my sales playbook need to make sure that I don't incur too much cost to actually, bring this customer on board? I think the other thing that I just quickly want to mention is we call it the CRON rate. And this measures the rate at which customers stop doing business with an entity. So a high churn rate can be a red flag indicating dissatisfaction with a product or a service. And reducing your churn rate can significantly impact a company's profitability, as again, retaining existing customers is often less costly than acquiring new ones. So for me, there's of course, for instance, if we think of a retail industry, gross profit is their number one matrix. I mean, I've worked 10 years at Chopra Checkers, I would know. And why is it so important? I mean, obviously, they're selling commodities. They're not manufacturing anything, they're selling commodities. And that um, gross margin return on investment, it actually evaluates the inventory profitability by comparing the gross profit margin a business earns to the amount of inventory investment made to earn that income. And it's very important to know that, because if you are buying, you know, containers full of, say, for instance, baked beans, and your costing isn't right, and you are only making, I don't know, 10% on that specific item. And yes, you might very well choose to only make 10% on that loss and you use it as a loss leader. But you need to understand what is the impact of actually having a loss leader. And how does that impact your gross margin, but also how does it impact your bottom line?
So, Linda, you using a lot of terminology that might be strange to people, because there's some business owners that haven't studied finance, and then there are some administrative staff that support the finance function, but they're not in it. So, how important do you think financial literacy is to people that are not in finance?
Oh, it's
And maybe before you ask that, I want to invite everybody to use the chat box to ask any questions that they want of clarity or make a comment. Please go ahead and do that.
yeah, I
That's,
think it's absolutely important for people to be financial literate. You know, even if you just think of your personal finances, and often people don't think about their first personal finances as finance. But I mean, you get a salary, you work out a budget, or hopefully you work out a budget, and you decide, okay, I have 100 rand left at the end of the month. Am I going to put in petrol or am I going to buy KFC? And it's the opportunity cost of making that decision of, how am I going to use the money? But when we do these actions, we don't really think about it as finance. But when we go out and we do, there's how many courses Laura's obviously offer, a service like that to actually give people access and train people on financial literacy, just to understand the basics of what are we talking about in your business, but also in your personal finance, because it is so important that we just have a basic idea to understand what is a budget. What is sales? What is cost of sales? What is a gross margin? What does my expenses entail? What does it mean when we talk about the net profit? Because like I say, often your personal finances, so your income is your sales, how you spend your money can, I pay the house, I pay the water and lights. Those are my cost of sales, and the money I have left is my gross profit. And then I have some money left to do entertainment and I've put in petrol and at the end, I'm either in a surplus or a negative, and that is your net profit. So I know it sounds that I'm really making it very simple. But in the end of the day, that is actually all that finance is. You just need to understand it. And of course, today, there are so many channels and platforms that you can actually go and self-learn. I mean, there are how many? I mean, I've lost count of YouTube videos talking about cash flow, talking about budgeting, talking about inventory management, TikTok videos, giving small little snippets, about finance. So if you want to really understand finance just in its simplest way, there's the whole internet to actually go. But of course, there's also formal classes. But if you, like I say, if you want to really understand finance, go out there. You will find something or somebody that can assist you to make that a lot more understandable world. And like me, to actually love numbers, because numbers turn the world around.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's so true, and so obviously technology helps. So in your experience, what role does technology play, and what should we, as the RMI women, whether we are corporate women, whether we are entrepreneurs, whether we are in finance, what role does technology play in finance and in business that you think that we should be aware of?
Technology is an ever evolving platform. And of course, we all know about artificial intelligence. We all know about ChatGPT, or maybe we don't. Um, but if you're not keeping up to times with how the world is moving out there, technology wise, you are going to stay behind, because machine learning, for instance, in the automobile industry, is going to be, super past you. It's already super past you if you have not kept abreast with technology. In the finance industry, I mean, there's a lot of these repetitive works, like for instance journals, normal admin work, that is going to become going to just press a little button in your ERP system or in your accounting system, and it's going to generate the action for you. So yes, you need to keep abreast. And in actual fact, I'm learning a lot about AI and finance, and actually how to apply it and make your life a lot easier um, around finance. So, no, absolutely, you can't stay behind. Um, Otherwise, you're going to be completely behind and you will become non-avoid. And people say, oh, but AI and technology is going to take my work away. No, it won't take your work away if you are staying abreast of the development of that. And remember, at the end of the day, computer can never replace a human factor. So,
Mm.
but if you know how to use it to advance yourself and your skills and advance the company that you are working with and embrace those changes, I mean, you will always be in demand.
Yeah. So you've already told us that we can learn how to do certain things on YouTube. So this artificial intelligence is very new. Can you tell me what is the most recent thing you've asked the Chat BT?
GDP, what is the
Chat
most
GDP,
recent?
yes, yes, the most recent thing you asked. Because
Okay.
look, if you define this chat GDP capability, it means you can ask anything and it will come out with an answer. Is it coherent in your experience?
It is, but you need to understand it's a large language model. So
Yeah.
it's not necessarily a financial module.
Yes,
But
yes.
what I'm doing is playing around with, so if, and of course we talk about prompt engineering. So if you give it a certain prompt without giving it a little history. So if you say, for instance, give me the advances of credit management, say, for instance. No? It will spit out, obviously anything that is on the internet about credit management. But if you are very specific and you are saying, I'm a credit management, I need to provide a board report. Can you give me the highs and lows of credit management, the risk management of it? I mean, it spits out like wonderful things. Of course, it depends on also why you want to use this, and why it's necessary to use it. But for enhancing your own learning and for enhancing, if you want to write a board report that is looking out of this world, and I'm playing around with adding visuals. And of course, you cannot use your customers' data. You have to make sure that you're using fake data just to see how it works and then use other platforms to actually input your customers' data so that it is secure because obviously, it is still your customers' data. But yeah, if you are playing around with it, I mean, it's wonderful. Uh, the free version is nice, but when you actually go into the paid version, wonderful things you can do there.
Yeah. So nobody's going to be writing reports anymore. It's all going to come from ChatGPT.
Yeah, although you have to be, I mean, you can't just obviously it can still make mistakes,
Yeah.
so you
Yes.
have to verify the
Yeah.
data, put your own
Yeah.
spin on it, make sure that you are making sure that that data that has been collided is absolutely correct. You still have to go and do your research, you still have to go and put your specific stamp on it and say, this is my report. But it is wonderful in giving you guidance and
Yes.
giving you ideas. And of course, if you have a business and you want to write, a marketing strategy or you want to write an advert, it writes wonderful adverts.
So, that's good to know. I'm sure everybody's going to explore that. And Ilse said in the chat that ChatGPT is amazing. She said that. So we're going to look at the questions in the chat. There's also a comment for somebody to turn his camera off. So if you people can all turn your cameras off, that will be good so that we can just focus on the speaker. Um, I'm going to ask a question that Ilse has asked. In terms of BE compliance, often with enterprise development to develop the enterprises into your suppliers, you don't just want a tick box exercise. You'd like that company to become successful. So, so she's asking, what would you say should be the number one thing we could advise that business owner to do to ensure they're financially prepared for this new venture? Do you have any basics that there should be, or a basic checklist?
Yeah, so I mean, BBBE is actually a wonderful business tool if you apply it in the correct way. And often it's applied from the top to the bottom instead from the bottom up. If you think about it, we start with social development. Looking at the young ones, making sure the schooling is there, and you build up the levels right down up to the MD level and management and maybe being an entrepreneur. Um, for that. But of course, for to develop suppliers and enterprise development, you really have to go out there and really look at what is it that you want to achieve, because it needs to be a collaboration between you and your supplier to make sure that both worlds actually get the best out of applying the right procurement strategies, because at the end of the day, it's not just a tick box exercise. Like I say, it's a wonderful business tool to empower businesses to make sure that they are compliant, but also to make sure that they have the best possible BE strategy that they can be. And of course, I'm not a BE specialist, but when you're in finance, BE comes across your table. And, so even with element six, when I was there, I had to source BE partners when we did a BE deal, so to make sure
Mm.
when we sold the business, when the mines became, very pressing on, you have to comply with BE ownership. So I know a lot about BE. There's a whole lot of different strategies, but I think at the end of the day, you need to think about, how do I actually take the BE, embrace it, make it part of my business strategy, that it works not only for me, but also for the next company. Because at the end of the day, just to throw money to to achieve a tick box, then you haven't achieved anything.
Yeah. So, Linda, that's exactly what Ilse is asking. She's saying that once you want to empower this business, this new enterprise, to develop him into a supplier, what would you advise for that small business to ensure that they're financially prepared and financially able? Do you have a checklist of things that should be in place in a small business that would make it a success? Should it be a beneficiary of such BEE funds?
Yeah, so I think what we need to also understand and take into account is that when you're a small business, so when you are 10 million and less, you are exempt. So automatically, you are a level 4. Or if you are a person of color, either an Indian person or a black person, I mean, you are automatically 100% BEE compliant as far as ownership is concerned. Obviously, those matrices change when you're a generic company. So when you earn more than 50 million revenue a year, those are then when you have to comply and say, okay, now I need to start looking at, acquiring um, suppliers that I can partner with. Now, from that company that is now a generic company, when they are looking at the smaller guys, and often, oh yeah, okay, this is a small guy, they're only making 10 million a year in revenue. Do I really want to partner with them? But then it's for the bigger company to actually take the hand and work with the smaller supplier and say, okay, you know what, we are going to give you preferential rates to help you, develop, or we're going to assist you in saying, you know what? We can provide a warehouse for you at a reduced rental rate, or maybe no charge at all for a certain time, so that they can help the supplier that has just a little bit of cash flow and a little bit of funds to actually develop, so that they can make more sales, so that they can become more compliant and
Yeah.
actually be, a big advance to the company that is using them as supplier development.
Yeah. Look, I think what is needed is what are the financial criteria? What is a financial checklist that that small company should have, and what should they know? But you don't have to answer it now because I'm sure it's a larger discussion. But
It's a much larger discussion.
it's really saying what should a startup what should a startup have in place? What should they know so that they are prepared to actually be poised for growth and so on.
So, I mean, one of the things that they can do is to go to the bigger suppliers and say, for instance, instead of paying me at the end of the month, could you pay me maybe every 14 days? Because a lot of people don't know that that can be part of the procurement points for the bigger supplier. And I mean, just to make an example, but you really need to, I mean, BEE is a business plan, but it's also a science. And you need to know all the rules and regulations around BE. And should there be anybody that really needs to understand how this matrix works and how it all fits together, they're more than welcome to contact me. And I will give them the guidance, although, like I'm saying, I am not a BE specialist. It's
Yeah,
not something that I'm specializing in. But I can help them to, start and then obviously refer them to one of
yeah,
my associates.
yeah. No, that it was actually not essentially a BE question. It was uh, what aspects of finance should that enterprise have to develop into supply? But we're going to leave that one for now because I think that it's quite challenging when you provide money to a small business and you expect them to take care of it. But even for a large business at the moment, the RMI is 80% small businesses, and then there are the corporates. But there's so much uncertainty. In the business environment, there's load shedding. For example, in our business, we can't do any vehicle testing if there's load shedding, for example. So you have to buffer yourself. What strategies can you recommend for businesses for the current challenges that are in our environment at the moment, Linda?
So I think what I've definitely seen, and especially in the smaller businesses, so you can make a choice. I just close my business down when it's load shedding and lose that revenue. Or you can actually go and say, okay, I'm going to invest in a normal generator or a small inverter, or, maybe consider solar. But recent studies have shown that, and of course, we are talking small business. We are not talking these big businesses that are putting solar on all their rooftops and on the ground and can generate millions and millions of watts, over a period. Um, it is actually cheaper to run a normal petrol or diesel generator to actually keep your business going. And it might sound contradicting, but for a small business, that if you want to really make sure that you are going to stay out there and stay relevant and stay competitive, it would be worth your while to consider installing and making use of a generator. Like I say, if you have the cash flow, look at a converter. If you have more cash flow, of course, solar is the way to go. There's many options, but I would really say that for a small business, it is really worth your while to invest in a generator. Um, because
So,
at the end of the day, it's better to spend that money and have, income coming in than have no money. And of course, you can test it. I mean, if you find that over that period you have no customers and you've tested over a while and see that it's not benefiting, by all means, then do it. It's like anything. When we do marketing, you say, okay, I'm putting ads out on, I don't know, LinkedIn. How many return am I actually getting? Is it worth my while? So things like that are always a trial and error and trial and testing exercise.
um, hmm. Linda, I think we're gonna change gears a little bit to personal finances. You know, all of us are at different life stages. Do you have advice for the women on the chat today regarding their personal finances? Perhaps do you have any tips that you want to share?
Yeah, I think there's a depending on where you are in your life cycle, but there's definitely many things one can do to actually prepare for the future. So I would say when you are in your younger years, so let's say 18 to 25. It's like, got my first paycheck, and but what are you going to do with that first paycheck? And going to buy clothes, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And when I was young, the first thing my mother said is, you're going to take 10% and you're going to save it. And then you're going to take 5% and you're going to pay me rent, even if you are staying with me. And that is a principle that has always stayed with me right throughout, you know, my career, my life, which I still apply. And of course, I taught that the same things to my sons because at the end of the day, you need to learn how to work with money responsibility from a very, very young age. And if you are earning 100 Rand, not to go and splash it all out. And on day two, you have no money. You have to really go and sit and work out the budget and say, okay, with my 100 Rand, I can do this, that, and the other. And how can I save? So, even, and I'm just calling small amounts. I mean, of course, it's a lot. I don't think people earn 100 Rand these days. They probably earn, I don't know, 5,000 Rand or 3,000 Rand. But if you take 10% of it, even if you only start with 5%, put it in a savings account. And if you are putting 100 Rand in there. By the end of the year, you have saved 1,200 Rand just on capital. Now, the little bit of interest you are earning on it, if you don't make any drawings, there's this wonderful thing called compound interest. So this month, your 100 Rand, you put in your 100 Rand at a 5% interest rate. You already have 105 Rand plus your new 100 Rand. So next month, you will have 210 Rand, and so it grows and grows. And before you know it, you have saved maybe 3,000 Rand without even thinking about it. But it is that discipline. Put it on a debit order. Put it to another account where it's not so easy. Oh, I can quickly just draw from it. No, put it there. Forget about it. Don't even think about it because that is the money that you're going to use for maybe studying further, for taking a little holiday, for, I don't know, deposit on a car or whatever you want to do. But the biggest thing is get into the habit of saving. And, we often say, oh, young people, I don't want to take a life policy. But why don't you want to take a life policy, for instance? Because it has many, many advantages going forward. Because you don't know when you're going to die. And then what? Now you've got, maybe you bought a car, maybe you've bought a house, and now you pass away. So maybe you're not married, now you pass away. Who's going to cover all that debt? Your parents? And so, we really, when we are young, we need to really sit and listen and say, okay, I've got to, start saving young. Because when you start, when you're young, by the time you're 50, you would have saved more in those years than you would save when you actually start only saving when you're 30. And those, the numbers of science has just shown us many, many times that those sums actually work. So I think, really get into the habit of making sure that you are saving. Watch out for credit cards. Credit cards is a really devastating thing. Try and stay away from it if you can, especially if you are young. Um, when you're now a little bit older, going to the next generation, maybe 30 to 45, now you're earning, you've bought a house. Now start to build up credit, because often when you need to purchase something, big things, you need a credit record. And the only way you can get a credit record is by having a good, credit card history, so that you can build up that credit history. But if your monthly repayment is 200 Rand, make sure you pay that 200 Rand within the allocated time. And if you can, before they actually, you know, charge the interest. If you have a bond, make sure you are actually, so if you all need to pay your bond on at the end of the month, actually pay your bond on the 15th if you can. Why? Because you are saving the interest, and you can reduce your bond payments by 3 to 4 to 5 years, depending obviously on what your bond repayment is. And make sure you have a kitty. Make sure you have an emergency fund, because what happens now, you have children, this happen, you maybe have elderly parents, you suddenly, something happens, I have no money, I maxed out my credit card, I've maxed out everything, and there's no kitty. I again, my mom, she was not a learner person. She only had, what's it now, I think grade 10, standard 8. But the one thing she taught me about money is to say, Linda, always have a kitty. And if you earn 100 Rand, don't go and show everybody that you earn 100 Rand. Tell them you're only earning 80 Rand, because the other 20 Rand is for your emergency fund. And make sure you put it away, because you never know when you're going to need it. And then, of course, when we are looking at our more mature ladies and men, or the other day, I'm borrowing the term from somebody that talked about referring to us a little bit more mature as vintage models. It was such a beautiful reference for me. Of course, now is the time to make sure that you are going to, focus on your retirement. Is your retirement plans in place? Do your calculation. If you don't know how to do the calculation, ask your broker to do the calculation. And you will be amazed, at what you still can do. Of course, if you're going to retire tomorrow and you've made no plans, sorry, I can't help you. But it's never too late to start to actually make sure that you are going to make sure that you are providing for your old age, for retirement, so that you can live in, I wouldn't say, you know, living like, um, and I want to say it with the greatest of respect, a rich person, that have abundance of money, but you want to make sure that you are comfortable and that you are not a burden to anybody. So always make sure, that those retirement plans are in place. And when you move from one job to another, especially here, from your 30s to your 40s to your 50s, you maybe now move around. Do not draw the pension money. Put it in a preservation fund. Let it work for you, because that is your future.
Yeah, it sounds good. We're running out of time, but there are still some questions.
Sure.
Uh, uh, there's one from Tinjui. She said, "Are there any courses or professional certifications that you believe non-financial persons may benefit from?" Do you have a short answer for that?
Yes, like there's many courses, finance for non-financial managers at the universities, at other institutions. Definitely something worthwhile investing in.
Mm. And also, we mustn't forget what you said previously about YouTube and being able to look at those as well,
Of course, of
for
course,
for everyday financial things. Yeah.
yeah, no, there's lots of people, like I say, giving wonderful guidance on YouTube, around all different, and some of them very expert, topics in finance and high level finance. And I love to look at those videos and just see, how people can actually relay out that message.
Yeah. Look, I'm afraid to ask you any more questions. It's so interesting, but I do believe that we have a 1 o'clock stop because people would be expecting to go. But I'd like to take the opportunity at the moment to thank you for actually, I mean, you were so warm and engaging. I could speak to you the whole afternoon to ask you questions and all of that. But at the moment, I'm going to ask our transformation director, Nani, if she would address us. Are you there, Nani?
I'm here. I'm definitely here and I'm listening very attentively. Wow. Such amazing insights, Linda. You know, Feroz has said it, the hour seems like it's very short because we would definitely have loved to hear from you more. So I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank you for sharing with us such valuable insights in terms of finances and giving us those valuable tips that we will apply going forward. And I love the fact that you covered all ages in terms of the young ones until your term, of course, which is vintage. Thank you so much, Linda. I'm going to use that term also going forward. To you, Feroz, thank you so much for facilitating such an amazing webinar. And to Danal, thank you, Danal, for actually never dropping the ball. And I always say that to you. Thank you for your arrangements for this available session. To our audience, I would like to urge you to go onto our transformation webpage. Please join the Women's Network. This network is for you. These activities like the On the Couch with are part of the Women Driving Change network. And we would like to hear from you. As you can see on the chat box, I did mention there that please share with us the topics that you would like to hear from us. And we will make sure that you definitely hear those topics. And I see that I think Angie has shared something in there, and it looks like most of our audience are loving it. So I think we will definitely make some work out of it. I think from me,
Nani, Nani, before everybody goes, maybe we could just have a picture where everybody puts on their cameras and we can just take a picture of the audience. Is that okay?
that is perfectly fine. Danelle, are you ready with the snapshot?
So everybody put on your
Yes, I
cameras,
can.
please. I must change my view to gallery so that we can see everybody. Okay, there's more coming. More is coming.
That's
I
lovely.
see so many beautiful people. I see Liesel, I
Yes.
see Nikki, Ilse. Hi, Ilse. Sarah, Angie. Angie, I love your topic of tips. Hi,
Yeah.
Natasha. Hello, Ria. Hello, Athena. Okay. Is Danelle taking a picture?
Danelle, please let
Yes,
us know
yes,
to
I
put
did.
our
Thank
pretty
you.
faces on. Have you already done it?
I've already taken one. Let's quickly take another one. 1, 2, 3, smile.
Cheese.
Awesome. Thank
Thank you so
you.
much. So we will also include then the snapshot, sorry, on our webpage, which is the transformation webpage. So from me and everybody else at the RMI, I'm saying thank you for joining us this afternoon. I hope you have yourselves a great day further and go out there and conquer. All the best,
Nani,
everybody.
Nani, one more thing. Um, Before we go, Linda has offered a one-on-one
Oh, yes.
session to one lucky person that was engaging us in the chat box. So Nani will look at that, and she's going to put those names in a lucky draw, and she's going to take those names. And Linda, thank you so much for offering to do that, because I think
Mm,
that will be really, really valuable session with the person and so on. And we'll continue reading your articles, and we wish you well.
yes.
And we wish you well for the Women of Stature Awards as well.
Thank you very much, for Rosa, and yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure, and I think this was one of the quickest 1 hour that has just sped by. But I've thoroughly enjoyed spending time with all of you, and I wish you all the very best with your RMI Women Organization, and I'm definitely also going to put my name in that hat.
Please.
And because I believe, to uplift women, to empower women, that is the way to go for the future, because we all stand strong, and if we can all support each other, and if we can all applaud each other, we can build a nation. So I wish you all very, very well wherever you are in your career, in your business, and you are most welcome to reach out to me. And let's see whether it's for building a career, wanting to know more about finance in your business, I will gladly assist.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, Nani.
Thanks,
Thank you, Linda.
everybody.
Thank you so
Have a good
much.
Thank you,
one.
everybody. Keep well.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.